Hi, welcome to another session of Demystifying Dev with Victor Kane. That's me. Welcome to the first video in the DurableDrupal Content Migration Rescue series. This is the remaking of a webfactory.com. So I'm a seasoned full-stack web application engineer with 30 years of experience. Been working with Node.js and JavaScript front-end frameworks since 2010. Building apps in React since 2016. DM me on Twitter at DemystifyingDev. Our project course objectives. The web app monolith is over and done with. Decoupled architecture is here. So structured content can be written once and published many times on all different kinds of devices according to our business strategies. So we must rescue our content from the monolith, structure up and offer it strategically to many different kinds of apps. Now, with flexibility comes complexity. We must demystify the new skills, fix limits on paywalls and vendor lock-in, and not let them pull the wool over our eyes. This course of action, this project course, is for any and all members of any team faced with the task of migrating content from the monolith to modern full-stack architecture. What you need to work through the course is a basic proficiency with modern JavaScript, basic proficiency with PHP for the legacy migration scripts, Docker and Docker Compose installed, otherwise full LAMP and MERN stack dependencies as you prefer. Basic full stack JavaScript development environment. Now don't worry, we'll help you get all of this up and running as we go along, and you don't have to be experts in any of these areas either. So, let's get on with the course roadmap. This is my professional blog. It's running on Drupal 6 on the monolith. I started to think about not just updating a Drupal release, but to migrate off the island, off the monolith, 5 years ago. Well, I got involved big time in mentoring and some important projects, but whenever I could, I got back to my project. And now it's essential to migrate to the full stack. A fully decoupled, design-friendly and dev-friendly and content editor-friendly high-performance architecture where I own my stuff. But every time I get down to brass tacks and say, okay, let's do this, everything changes. And I sit here with my mouth open, my jaw drops, and I'm just staring at the screen in amazement at the rate of change and all the awesome excitement. Now, I just want my blog back. I'm going to do this and publish every step I take right here out in the open. Every week, there'll be a video and commits to open source repos and documentation and all the readmes, and then hopefully on my blog again. And hopefully it will help you all suffering from web app development fatigue as much as I am. So, welcome to this project course as online process, a process to course through the project online as totally social, transparent development. All development is social. Now I'm strong enough to do it. So, here we go. Welcome to DDCMR Part 1, Drupal 6 to Full Stack. DDCMR is a durable Drupal content migration rescue involved here in the remaking of a webfactory.com. In section 1, we'll check out the business requirements. The object there is to come up with a feature list, a UI design, and kick off. In section 2, we'll see DevOps and candidate architectures for all iterations. And in section 3, we'll start off iteration 1. That's API design and construction for legacy content migration. In section 4, iteration 2, we'll do the first part of our legacy content migration. And in section 5, iteration 3, we'll finish up the legacy content migration with part 2. That'll involve some of the more complex relationships and so on and so forth. In section 6, iteration 4, we'll have the complete site up with legacy content. In section 7, iteration 5, we'll have the site up with the new content. We'll have an editorial workflow in place along with thoughts about maintenance. So I'm very excited to be presenting this project, the Durable Drupal Content Migration Rescue Remaking of a Webfactory.com. Right here on Demystifying Dev Learning Channel, a video and a repo every week. Now, it's not a question of a superficial case study. Demystifying Dev is a learning project for us, and we hope for you too. That's what we want to be doing, leveling the learning curve together for full stack development by learning with real-world challenges, avoiding paywalls and vendor lock-in by any means necessary, finding solutions that make things as simple and straightforward as possible. And we want lasting, reusable, shareable solutions too. That's why this, in many ways, is a pilot project. For all links and references mentioned, check out the text right below the video. You can click on the See More link, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications of new content, as everyone says. For this real-world project course, as I say, a new step will be taken and a video published every week with full documentation in an accompanying repo right on GitHub. If anything's missing or you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give feedback in the comments. Let's get on with section 1. Business requirements, feature list, UI design, and kickoff. In video 1, we'll have our business model canvas. In video 2, a lean UX canvas, and then we'll be ready to kick off. Now, what's going on here? What is the web application or website for? Do we really know? What are we assuming? What are we really going for? That's what the business model canvas explained will show us. This is the business model canvas with the value propositions to see what the solution is we're offering with the web app, reviewing the customer segments to see who has a problem that really needs solving, and who are we making the web app or the website for? Now, it really makes every difference in the world whether you have this clear before you get started or not. There's a nice YouTube video. This is all in the references. And Wikipedia explains also very clearly what it is. Now, the lean UX canvas. So this is now that we have a pretty good idea of what we're aiming for and why we're doing all this, how do we get there? How will we find out if we're right? Just like code, by testing as we go. So we'll take a good look at the Lean UX canvas. We'll see, what's the business problem we've identified that we assume is people are really going to pay for or participate in a project for. And given that problem, what solutions are being offered? What business outcomes do we expect? Will the community grow? What user outcomes are we expecting and benefits? And are people really getting the benefits? So obviously this lends itself to an iterative approach. Without this, it really makes no sense to even begin a website. This will help us get down to brass tacks because we'll have our hypotheses, and then what's the most important thing we need to test first? And what's the least amount of work that we need to do to get there? Because basically each iteration will teach us more about whether we're on the right track. Again, this is all part and parcel of meeting real needs for people using an iterative approach to how we're building this. So what's next? The kickoff. What goes on at the kickoff? Brainstorming and validation exercises which will enable the team to define the minimum viable product. In other words, the first backlog. How do we define the minimum viable product at the kickoff? As a set of user stories constituting the current backlog needed to implement the features. How do we arrive at the MVP? By studying the problem, users, and solution fit that we were talking about before, who needs it? They need it. How do we know? Because we asked people what they need, what problems they have. They told us about their problem. We figured out what the solution might be, and we think it's going to be a good fit, but we don't really know. Our understanding of user problems, we would gladly pay to be solved. Now, who exactly really have the problem? Who exactly really would gladly pay to have it solved? Our assumptions about what the solution to those problems might be and our hypotheses about which solutions will be the best fit is what's going to help us get our features and our feature list together. We'll also be doing collaborative design and prototype towards an initial MVP with all roles participating together. Now, it means if we use this method, we can actually have everybody working, and instead of like the dev people waiting for the design to come, and there's all kinds of coding decisions made in the design, and there's all kinds of design decisions made in the coding. Let's do this together and get it done. And when we do say minimum viable product, we're saying it's the first level of the product, the minimum we can do where we can actually test whether we actually have a solution for the people who have a problem. Once the MVP is defined, a subsequent iteration planning meeting defines user story backlog. We will definitely go into detail in all of this in video 3. And by this time, we have our team together and we're ready to kick off the whole project. We've kicked it off. And we've finished section 1. Section 2, DevOps and candidate architectures. In video 4, we'll see the candidate architecture for the backend. We'll see about using Docker Compose for development. We'll see about deployment and what kind of roadmap we have up our sleeves for better deployment and scaling as time goes on and as success goes on. Because if no one uses it, we don't need to scale it. We hope we'll have to scale it. So what about that candidate architecture for the backend? We're going to decide our candidate backend architecture from Strapi, which we've been working with for a while now, Keystone 5, our own solution that we've used perfectly well before. Why can't we just use that again? And then there are other solutions well worth considering before kickoff, such as apostrophe CMS. So what's up with our own Node.js Express Mongoose solution with JWT Auth? Why don't we just use that again? We've got a GitHub repo of it. Let's take a look. Here we have the DurableDrupal content migration rescue prototype. And we actually have here a CMS, a client web application, and a structured content server, along with some utilities. And we have our prototype running at DurableDrupal.org. It gives us the whys and wherefores of the DurableDrupal content migration rescue, which I'd actually like to share. What is it? It's a step-by-step approach offering freely shared resources needed for migrating your content from an obsolete monolithic architecture that won't scale to a modern and truly scalable full-stack JavaScript set of decoupled architecture, applications, and services. Included here in this DurableDrupal content migration rescue website repo, which we're looking at here, which is right on GitHub in the DurableDrupal organization, you'll have everything you need to work in the most efficient way possible with your own project. Or maybe we should use Strapi, or maybe we should use Keystone, or maybe we should use apostrophe CMS. Here's our Demystifying Dev YouTube channel, and we have Create React App Docker example, Next.js Docker Compose example, and a Strapi Docker Compose example, and I suppose we will have more coming out. So we will be going into that in Docker Compose for development. Then, in video 6, we'll be going into what are we going to do for deployment, right? And there we're going to discuss, the full stack architecture based examples we've been working on, right? Plus the DevOps work required for deployment and maintenance. We'll show how the DurableDrupal org prototype is running in production from the point of view of DevOps. We'll also show how the linguathon.com ESL educational community prototype is running in production, right? Great. That's video 6. In video 7, we do have to touch on the roadmap for better deployment and scaling, because we don't want to be dependent, on this awesome platform and Amazon. We want to be able to do it as cheaply and as well as we can. We just want to use a VM, and we just want to put a database on it and a reverse proxy on it, Nginx, and then we could have Docker stuff going on, or we could just have simply instances running. The simplest thing we can do by just following instructions and without being experts, we can get that going. But when we got to scale, we got to scale. So video 7 will go into that. Then in section 3, we'll first design the API and then construct a suitable backend for the legacy content migration. And we'll go into all kinds of detail, right? What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the preparatory investigation of backend schema creation, content modeling, migration methods and tools. We're going to talk in another video, the next one, on how to perform a complete inventory of legacy content, which is a whole subject in itself, right? And then in video 10, we'll complete the content modeling, which is another subject in itself, together with the concurrent schema REST API implementation, design and implementation with a chosen backend. Then we'll do a couple of iterations for the legacy content migration. For example, migration of tags, authors, stories, and not only migration of authors or migration of stories, but migration of authors and stories and articles and whatever, and images. It's a whole subject in itself, right? And we'll be doing this together in the course of this project. Section 5, iteration 3, we'll do the second part. The blog post and the comments. Again, blog posts and then blog posts and comments. The book pages hierarchy. Drupal has this great book pages. In any case, we're going to be needing hierarchies, outlines, whatever. We'll have a lot to talk about that, right? Then migration testing, upsert functionality in Strapi or whatever the backend platform we decide upon, and there may be some surprises there. So we'll be moving on then to the fourth iteration, which is saying, okay, we've got all of our legacy content, now we need to get the site up. And that involves the candidate architectures for the front end. And that's, a big story. I won't even go into that now. But we need to choose the front end architecture or several front end architectures, but we need to get that done. I want my blog back. Then once we've decided on the candidate architectures, we need to actually scaffold the front end. We need to consume the backend content and then complete the front end app. Okay. Then we need to discuss deployment, again, avoiding paywalls as much as possible. We want our stuff. We don't want vendor lock-in. So how can we deploy as best as we can? Then, in the last part, we want our new content up. And while we're at it, we need to put in place an editorial workflow and talk about maintenance. This is completely ignored in many frameworks. Because not only do we have a development workflow with developers, but this thing has to be used for 10 years or 5 years. So we need a content editorial workflow. Who is the team that are in charge of managing the content, and what kind of workflow are they going to be given to work on for 5 years? And the maintenance. What is maintenance? What does this even mean? New releases, all kinds of security releases. And anyway, many agencies and many developers fail to educate in this regard. This is not a toaster. You're not buying a toaster. You as a company, you as a community, you as a co-op, what are you doing? You're putting into place a live web application or even website that has its own life and its own maintenance, and it's an ongoing project. This does not end with the deployment. We have to understand that. So, welcome again to DurableDrupal Content Migration Rescue. Hopefully we have shared what this is all about. The remaking of a webfactory.com. This is going to be the Drupal 6 to full stack JavaScript migration. We'll be doing a Drupal 7 and a Drupal 8 and a Drupal 9 example. But right now I want my blog back. Every week we'll have another video out. It'll have a code repo to go along with it, and you guys can pick and choose, and we can all pick and choose together what we want to use for our own, to meet our own needs, our own projects that we're working on. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe. Every week a video, every week a repo. Let's get this done together.